Hi, everyone.
Oops, turned
It's
on.
now? Okay, is that better?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming today. The presentation today is about flower workers in the U.S. And U.S. fair trade with Colombia. And we have representatives from an organization called Cactus from Colombia, and they will be talking today. And I also wanted to thank the Department of Anthropology, Spanish and Portuguese, and the Peace and Conflict Studies program, because together we all made this happen today. So thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Julia Durante and I work with the Witness for Peace Colombia team. Witness for Peace is a US-based organization that focuses on peace and justice in the Americas through changing US military and economic policies that contribute to poverty and oppression throughout the hemisphere. And so we organize speakers tours as one of the many different activities that we work on to help get the stories coming from Latin America to the United States for folks to hear about the realities on the ground. And so this year's speaker tour, we're really excited to have invited Leonardo Luna and Josefa Gomez from the Colombian organization Cactus to talk about the flower industry in Colombia. So I'm just going to say a little bit about Witness for Peace and why we work in Colombia, and specifically why we're focusing on flowers today, and then turn it over to them to share their experiences with you. So I already mentioned briefly Witness for Peace's mission. The organization was founded just over 30 years ago in Nicaragua in 1983 during the Contra War, when the US government was backing the Contras, this paramilitary death squads in Nicaragua that were responsible for a lot of social repression and violence against communities there. And so there was a group of US citizens in Nicaragua at the time, mostly faith-based groups, that were accompanying some of these communities. And the communities told them that when there was international presence there, the violence against the communities tended to decrease because there was more visibility of these realities, and also on the direct connection between the US and these Contras via the military funding. And so Witness for Peace then started bringing regular delegations of US citizens down to Nicaragua, and the idea was that the delegations would provide short-term human rights protection through their immediate presence there, and that then when they returned to the US, they would continue educating US citizens about the effects of US military funding and military policy on the ground, and sharing these community stories with other US citizens, and therefore helping to build a movement to change US policy throughout the Americas. And so that continues to be more or less how Witness for Peace operates today. We still lead delegations throughout the countries we work in, which now include still Nicaragua and also Honduras, Colombia, Mexico, and Cuba. The Colombia program began in 2001 in the wake of Plan Colombia, this multi-billion-dollar anti-narcotic and counter-terrorism aid package that the US government authorized. And there were a lot of concerns expressed by Colombian human rights defenders and communities as to what the human rights implications of all of this military aid that was suddenly flooding into Colombia would be. Since that time, Colombia has become the third largest recipient of US military aid in the world, after Israel and Egypt. And over $7 billion of US taxpayer money have gone to Colombia since 2000 to fund the war on drugs and counterinsurgency efforts there. So that's how Witness for Peace started working in Colombia, was initially around this military relationship. In addition to a very close military relationship, not just in terms of aid, but military training of Colombian soldiers at the School of the Americas in Fort Benning. The US and Colombia also have a very close trade relationship, which has become even closer in the last 2 years since the implementation of the free trade agreement between the US and Colombia. And that was another agreement that was met with a lot of concern around labor conditions and labor rights in Colombia, especially given that Colombia is the most dangerous country in the world for trade unionists. And so Witness for Peace and the organizations that we partner with continue to monitor the effects of the free trade agreement and sharing this analysis from communities on the ground about whether the promises made as part of the free trade agreement regarding more jobs and better quality jobs for Colombians have come true. And so why the flower industry specifically? Because the flower industry is particularly known for its egregious labor rights violations and was named as a priority sector for improvement under the free trade agreement. It's also a very clear example of a direct supply-demand relationship between Colombia and the United States. Colombia exports 95% of their flowers, and 76% of those flowers are exported to the United States. So it's a very easy way to see US consumers demanding a product and then what that looks like on the production side, what the realities are for the workers that are growing and shipping these flowers. So I think that's all I'll say for now, and I will turn it over to our guests, Leo Luna and Josefa Gomez, to talk about their work with Cactus in Colombia.
Hola, buenos días.
Good morning.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Josefa Gómez, soy trabajadora de flores y actualmente trabajo en la corporación Cactus.
Good morning. My name is Josefa Gomez. I'm a former flower worker, and I currently work with the Colombian organization Cactus.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Leonardo Luna, soy comunicador social y periodista y trabajo con diferentes comunidades en Colombia, en la Sabana de Bogotá.
Good morning. My name is Leonardo Luna. I'm a reporter and journalist in Colombia, and I've also been working with Cactus and different communities in the Bogotá Sabana for 13 years.
Cactus es una organización social que nace hace 20 años alrededor de la floricultura, preocupadas casi todas las mujeres de un grupo de profesionales por las condiciones de vida de las trabajadoras de flores y también por los impactos ambientales de este sector en nuestro territorio. Además de la floricultura, trabajamos promulgando la participación y la organización juvenil, las mujeres, el trabajo y la economía, también la soberanía alimentaria por medio de huertas familiares y comunitarias, y nuestro objetivo máximo es que la gente se organice, haga un movimiento social fuerte en la Sabana de Bogotá y decida sobre su propio territorio.
Cactus was founded 20 years ago, originally to address concerns regarding environmental and labor conditions in the flower industry in Colombia and accompanying Colombian flower workers. That's still part of our focus, but since that time we've also expanded to include several other programs. These include a program that's focused on women, labor, and the economy that looks a lot at gender issues, youth outreach programs, and youth organizing, a food justice program that includes community and family gardens, and all of this serving the broader mission that it should be the people and communities living in the Bogotá Sabana that determine the policies that are implemented there and not powerful outside interests.
Bueno, no sobra decir que venimos de la esquina norte de Sudamérica.
It never hurts to point out where Colombia is on a map. We come from the northern corner of South America.
Y nuestro país se caracteriza por ser un país hermoso, con gente maravillosa, pero también por un conflicto armado de 60 años atrás, una reprimarización de la economía, exportación de petróleo, oro, carbón, agua también, diferentes minerales, y violación sistemática y masiva de derechos humanos.
General things to know about Colombia is that it's home to some wonderful and amazing people. It's also largely a primary resource-based economy. So most of the economy is based around the extraction of natural resources. This includes oil, coal, gold, and other minerals. There's also been an armed conflict going on for more than 60 years that continues today and that has led to massive and systematic human rights violations.
Nosotros trabajamos no en todo Colombia, sino en el centro del país, que es la Sabana de Bogotá, el área metropolitana, incluyendo la capital, vivimos 10 millones de personas de un total de 46 millones de habitantes.
Cactus works in the Bogotá Sabana, which is in the center of the country, and it includes the capital city, Bogotá, the metropolitan area. So it's home to about 10 million people, out of Colombia's total population of 46 million.
Este es un territorio rico en agua y es donde se produce la mayor cantidad de flores cortadas para la exportación. Somos el segundo país exportador de flores en el mundo después de Holanda y del total de flores que producimos, el 95% se exporta. Un 76% viene para acá, para Estados Unidos, un 5% para Rusia y un 4% para Japón.
Colombia is the second largest flower exporter in the world after the Netherlands. And the majority of the flowers that are grown in Colombia are grown in the Bogotá savanna because of the rich soil and water resources. Colombia exports 95% of the flowers of its flowers, and 76% of those flowers are exported to the United States, followed by 5% to Russia and 4% to Japan.
La floricultura nace en 1960 de forma intencionada desde un estudio que hace la Universidad de Chicago y que ubica que la sabana de Bogotá es muy fértil en sus suelos en aguas subterráneas y desde ahí nace la floricultura, pero para hablar de ella, mejor Josefa, que es la experta.
The flower industry as a monoculture for export really took off in the 1960s due to a study done by the University of Chicago, which identified the soil and the water in the Bogotá savanna as particularly apt for flower growing. So that's how the industry really took hold. But to talk more about that, I'll turn it over to Josefa, who's the expert in all things related to the flower industry.
La sabana de Bogotá en los 60 era muy conocida por sus extensos cultivos de alimentos y sus grandes fincas ganaderas. A medida que fue llegando la floricultura a la sabana de Bogotá, esto se ha ido terminando. La floricultura en Colombia genera alrededor de 130.000 empleos. De estos 130.000 empleos, el 69% son mujeres y de este 69% la mayoría son madres cabezas de familia.
The Bogotá savanna used to be known for its diverse food crops and food cultivation, along with livestock raising. With the growth of the flower industry, those activities have largely disappeared and been replaced with flower growing. The flower industry now employs about 130,000 workers. Of these workers, 69% are women, and the majority of these women are heads of household or single mothers.
Cada invernadero contiene alrededor de 250 a 300 camas y cada cama consta de 1 metro de ancho por 40 a 60 metros de largo, dependiendo la variedad que se le vaya a sembrar.
A typical flower greenhouse has around 250 or 300 flower beds, each of which measures 1 meter wide by 40 to 60 meters long, depending on the variety.
Los químicos que usan para matarle la enfermedad que le nace a la planta está afectando el medio ambiente y las aguas. Hace 14 años a cada trabajadora le daban entre 20 y 25 camas. Hoy en día a cada trabajadora le dan entre 40 y 60 camas para tenerlas al día con toda la labor que hay que hacer.
In the past, as recently as 14 years ago, each worker was usually assigned between 20 to 25 of these flower beds that they were responsible for caring for. Now that total is more like 40 to 60 flower beds per worker. In addition to that, the pesticides that are used as part of the flower growing process have really harmful effects on the environment and often pollute the soil and the local water resources.
Esta flor lleva harto trabajo. En el único momento que uno tiene apoyo para tener las camas es cuando es la siembra, porque hay que dejar sembrado el mismo día que se empieza a sembrar. Del resto ya lo hace uno solo. Lo primero que se le hace es el pinch, que es quitarle el tallo principal a la planta para que salgan salgan más hartos tallos. Luego se le ubican unas mallas encima con unos cuadros de 20 por 20 y para poder guiar la planta por este cuadro para que no salgan los tallos torcidos. Y
producing flowers is a very labor-intensive and physically demanding process. It starts with the planting of the flowers, which is actually the only stage of the process that's at all collaborative or shared between workers. From that point on, each worker is solely responsible for carrying out the rest of the tasks in all of the beds that they're assigned. So after the plants are planted and start growing, the workers prune the flowers to get a higher yield from each plant. They also stretch out a series of nets over the tops of the flowers that have these perfectly square openings in the top, and have to make sure that each flower grows up through its assigned square so that the stalks grow perfectly straight. During this time, they're also weeding the flowers and making sure that everything is exactly in its row and its assigned space.
Luego se le quita, se llama descabece, que es quitarle la primera flor que abre para que las otras cojan su punto de corte, y luego se le hace el corte. Luego la flor es llevada para la sala y allí se le hace otro proceso que ya es la selección, el embonche y la empacada lista para la exportación. Todo este trabajo que tiene la flor en posiciones que afectan la salud, mucho la salud, porque es estar en jornadas sin pausa, muy largas. Entonces, les voy a mencionar unas pocas de las enfermedades que salen, como es por las posiciones, la columna, por el corte, porque hay que cortar 300 tallos por hora, entonces el túnel del carpio, y por los químicos que usan, cáncer en la piel y en la sangre.
That's followed by another pruning stage, and after that the flowers are cut and then taken to a cold room where they're sorted and classified and bunched up for export. So all of these different stages of the process, again, are very physically demanding and are typically performed in the positions that you could see in the photo. So workers are hunched over like that for hours at a time. They work very long shifts and are usually denied breaks. So this leads to some very common injuries and other illnesses. And I'll just mention some of the most common ones that we tend to see. There's a lot of back injuries and spine injuries among workers from the cutting of the flowers, because at that stage the workers are expected to cut at least 300 flowers an hour. A lot of workers develop carpal tunnel syndrome. And then from exposure to pesticides, there's several forms of cancer that are common, including blood and skin cancers.
Ya les conté un poco sobre el proceso para sacar la flor. Yo fui trabajadora de flores por 15 años. Les voy a comentar ahora algo que pasó en la última finca que trabajé. Allí quisieron hacer un cambio de razón social, que es cambiarle el nombre a la empresa, más no cambia de dueño. Para ellos empezar a hacer esto, lo primero que hacen es hacer una presión, como decirle a uno que la empresa está en quiebra, que hay que quedarse en jornada extra sin remuneración para poder sacar la empresa adelante, pero ya está la nueva firma ahí, los nuevos supuestos dueños, entonces ya empiezan también a decirle a la gente que tienen que empezar a firmar contrato con estas personas. Hay personas que firman con la nueva supuesta empresa y pierden sus derechos.
So that's just a bit about the process that goes into producing flowers and the labor that's required. I'd now like to talk to you just a bit about my experience as a worker. I was a flower worker for 15 years. And I want to tell you about one of the experiences I had at the last flower company that I worked for. This farm announced that Wexmax EU is the name of the farm that's up on the screen. Announced that they were going through bankruptcy and that they were going to get bought by a new company. But in reality, the owners were the same people. So essentially it amounted to changing the name of the company on paper, or changing the company on paper only. As part of this process, the company began to pressure workers, saying that if they wanted to save the company from bankruptcy, they needed to work additional hours for which they would not be compensated. Again, to save the company from bankruptcy and save their jobs. workers were also pressured to sign new contracts with the supposedly new company that was actually the exact same people, which meant that they would lose all of the seniority and benefits that they had accrued under their old contracts.
Esto lo hacen para sacar a la gente que ya lleva muchos años en la empresa y también a la gente enferma y poder contratar nueva gente para que les dé el rendimiento que se necesita.
These sorts of legal maneuvers, fake bankruptcies, changing in names of companies, are very common strategy. It's a very common strategy that's used in Colombia in order to remove more senior workers from their positions, workers that would be getting close to retirement and pensions and be owed those benefits, as well as workers that have become injured or sick on the job, and a way to avoid paying them workers' compensation or health care. And so by pretending that the company under which these workers had contracts no longer exists, companies are able to liberate themselves from those costs. So it's a cost-saving mechanism. But then the same owners just set up like a new company with new contracts and either pressure the former workers to sign with them and lose their benefits, or they're able to bring in new workers that they see as more productive, that can work faster.
Ellos no tienen una sola finca, ellos tienen varias fincas en distintos lados. Aquí en esta finca donde yo estuve, hubimos unas personas que no quisimos firmar con la nueva empresa, ni tampoco quedarnos laborando sin remuneración. Entonces lo que hicimos fue organizarnos y montar un sindicato de trabajadores. Cuando la empresa se dio cuenta, lo que hizo fue llamar la junta directiva y darles plata, y ellos se fueron y nos dejaron ahí desprotegidos.
Typically, most flower companies operate in a number of different fields. So in this particular field where I was working, there was a group of workers that didn't want to sign new contracts and lose our seniority, nor did we think that we should have to work these extra hours for no pay. So we decided to organize a union, and we started organizing workers. But then when the company found out what we were doing, they called the union leadership and bribed them to leave the company, and so the workers were left with no representation.
Ellos mandan unas rutas a que nos recojan y nos lleven hasta la finca. Al otro día mandaron la ruta normal. Cuando llegamos a la empresa no nos dejaron ingresar, nos estaban esperando con vigilantes con perros para que no pudiéramos ingresar las personas que habíamos firmado con la nueva supuesta empresa que había llegado. Esto ya lo venían haciendo en otras fincas. Allí afuera duramos 2 semanas cumpliendo el horario. Entonces, en una de estas